He was supposed to convert the Lakota warrior to Christianity. He converted her to love instead.
Eleanor had imagined the journey many times before she ever stepped onto the dusty plains. In her mind, everything had been clear and certain.
She believed she knew why she was coming, what she would do, and how her story would unfold. She had grown up in a quiet town where people spoke about distant lands with a mixture of curiosity and confidence. Her church leaders described the Lakota people as a community waiting for guidance, and she accepted that description without questioning it deeply. To her, the mission felt like a calling, something bigger than herself. The long journey west changed her slowly, even before she realized it. Endless stretches of open sky replaced the crowded streets she had known. The air felt sharper, the wind stronger, and the silence deeper than anything she had experienced before. When she finally reached the mission settlement, she stood still for a long moment, trying to take everything in. The buildings were simple, made from wood and stone, surrounded by rolling land that seemed to go on forever. Horses moved slowly in the distance, and smoke rose from small fires near the Lakota camp nearby. The mission itself was busy but quiet. Other missionaries greeted her kindly, though their smiles carried a tiredness she had not expected. They spoke about challenges, language barriers, cultural misunderstandings, and the difficulty of gaining trust. Eleanor listened carefully, nodding, but inside, she believed she would succeed where others struggled. She had faith, patience, and strong determination. She believed those qualities would guide her. Her first days were filled with work. She helped organize lessons for children, taught basic reading and writing, and joined prayer gatherings. She tried to bring warmth into her teaching, smiling often and speaking gently. Some children responded with curiosity, while others remained distant, watching her with cautious eyes. Eleanor told herself that trust simply needed time. The Lakota community lived close enough to the mission that their presence was always felt. She noticed how they moved with confidence, as if they belonged completely to the land itself. Their conversations, songs, and rituals felt unfamiliar to her, yet she could not deny the sense of unity among them. She reminded herself of her purpose, to guide them toward what she believed was the right path. It was during a small gathering organized by the mission that she first saw Chaska. He stood slightly apart from the others, listening more than speaking. His presence felt calm and steady, and people seemed to naturally give him space. Eleanor had heard his name mentioned before, a respected warrior, someone who had survived difficult times and carried influence within the community. When she began speaking about faith through a translator, she felt confident at first. She spoke about hope, forgiveness, and salvation, using words she had practiced many times. Some listeners nodded politely, while others remained expressionless. Chaska's gaze stayed fixed on her, not challenging, but deeply attentive. It made her slightly nervous, though she could not explain why. After she finished, he approached slowly. Instead of arguing, he asked a simple question about why she believed one way of living was better than another. The translator repeated his words carefully. Eleanor answered with conviction, explaining her beliefs about truth and guidance. He listened quietly and then asked another question, this time about love, whether love required someone to change who they were. The question lingered in her mind long after the conversation ended. She told herself that he was simply testing her understanding, yet she felt unsettled. She had expected resistance or rejection, not thoughtful curiosity. In the following days, she noticed him often. He helped repair fences, carried supplies for elders, and spoke gently to children who followed him around with admiration. His actions contradicted the image she had been given of warriors as harsh or aggressive. Instead, he seemed patient and kind, though his quiet strength was clear. Eleanor began to observe him more carefully, though she told herself it was only for the sake of understanding the people she had come to help. She watched how he listened when others spoke, rarely interrupting, and how he encouraged cooperation rather than conflict. The more she observed, the more she realized that his leadership came from respect rather than authority. One afternoon, he approached her while she struggled to communicate with a group of children. He offered to help translate certain words, showing her subtle differences in meaning that she had not learned during training. His explanations were calm and patient, and she found herself appreciating his guidance, even as she reminded herself that she was supposed to be the teacher. Their conversations began slowly after that. At first they spoke about language, simple words and phrases, shared laughter over misunderstandings. Then their discussions turned deeper, touching on beliefs, traditions, and personal experiences. Eleanor tried to present her faith clearly, believing that understanding would eventually lead him toward conversion. He listened carefully, never dismissing her words, yet he responded with stories from his own culture that challenged her assumptions. He spoke about the land as something sacred, about listening to nature and respecting balance. He described how elders taught values through stories rather than strict rules. Eleanor found herself fascinated, despite her initial hesitation. She realized she had expected simplicity, yet what she encountered was complexity and depth. As winter approached, the weather changed quickly. Strong winds swept across the plains, bringing freezing temperatures that forced both communities to work together more closely. Supplies became limited, and maintaining warmth required constant effort. During this time, Eleanor saw Chaska's leadership clearly. He organized groups to gather firewood, ensured that elders had enough blankets, and checked on families who might need help. One evening, while carrying water back to the mission, Eleanor slipped on ice and nearly fell. Chaska appeared beside her, steadying the bucket without making a big gesture. He simply nodded and walked with her, ensuring she reached the building safely. The moment felt small, yet it stayed with her. She felt gratitude mixed with something else she could not yet name. The harsh winter weeks created unexpected closeness between people who had once kept distance. Shared struggles made cooperation necessary, and Eleanor began to see the Lakota community not as strangers, but as individuals with stories, fears, and hopes similar to her own. Despite these changes, she remained determined to fulfill her mission. She believed that patience would eventually lead to progress, that one day Chaska might accept her teachings fully. Yet she also noticed a subtle shift within herself. She no longer viewed him as someone who needed fixing, but as someone whose perspective mattered. Their conversations continued late into the evenings when work allowed. Sometimes they spoke about personal memories, her childhood in a distant town, his experiences growing up among his people. Other times they simply sat in comfortable silence, watching the sky change colors as the sun disappeared behind the horizon. Eleanor felt a growing sense of calm during these moments, a feeling different from the certainty she had once relied on. She realized that understanding someone deeply required more than teaching. It required listening without judgment. As the season moved forward, she began to question things she had never questioned before. Why had she assumed that her way was the only way? Could faith exist in different forms without losing meaning? These thoughts both excited and frightened her. She kept these questions mostly to herself, worried about how others at the mission might react. Outwardly, she continued her work with dedication. Inwardly, she sensed that something within her was changing, slowly, quietly, and without permission. By the time the snow began to melt, Eleanor knew that her journey had already become something different from what she had expected. She had come to teach and convert, certain of her role and her purpose. Now she found herself standing at the beginning of a path she had never imagined, one shaped not by certainty but by curiosity, respect, and a connection she could not ignore. When winter slowly faded and the earth began to soften under the warmth of early spring, Eleanor felt as if something inside her was also changing. The long, cold months had brought unexpected closeness between people who once kept distance, and now the air felt lighter, filled with quiet hope. Snow melted into streams that ran across the land, and children played outside again, their laughter echoing across the plains. Eleanor continued her work at the mission, teaching reading and writing, helping prepare meals and assisting with daily tasks. On the surface, her life looked the same as before, yet her thoughts had become more complicated. She found herself thinking often about her conversations with Chaska. His words stayed with her, not because he tried to convince her of anything, but because he spoke with honesty and calm confidence. She began seeking opportunities to talk with him, sometimes under the excuse of learning more about the Lakota language. He seemed willing to help without hesitation. Their lessons became moments where they exchanged more than words. She taught him English phrases, and he taught her Lakota expressions that carried deeper meanings connected to nature and community. One afternoon they walked together along a small river near the settlement. Eleanor asked questions about traditions she had observed but did not fully understand. Instead of giving short explanations, Chaska told stories. He spoke about elders who passed wisdom through generations, about ceremonies that honored life rather than controlled it, and about the importance of balance between people and the world around them. Listening to him, Eleanor realized that she had once seen these traditions as obstacles. Now she felt curiosity instead of judgment. She began to understand that his beliefs were not simply habits, but guiding principles shaped by centuries of experience. Despite this growing connection, she remained committed to sharing her faith. During their conversation, she explained passages from the Bible, speaking about forgiveness and love. She hoped that by showing kindness and patience, he might eventually accept her perspective. Yet he never reacted with rejection or agreement. He listened quietly, sometimes asking thoughtful questions that made her reflect on her own understanding. Rumors slowly began to spread within both communities. Some missionaries noticed how often Eleanor spoke with Chaska and worried that she was becoming too influenced by him. They reminded her of her responsibilities, suggesting that emotional involvement could weaken her purpose. Their words made her uncomfortable, though she tried not to show it. At the same time, some members of the Lakota community watched their growing friendship with curiosity. A few elders seemed cautious, perhaps unsure of her intentions. Eleanor felt caught between two worlds, belonging fully to neither. One evening after a long day, she sat outside the mission building, feeling overwhelmed. She had expected clear progress, visible signs that her work was changing lives. Instead, she felt uncertain. Chaska joined her quietly, sitting beside her without speaking at first. The silence felt peaceful rather than awkward. She admitted that she felt lost. She had come with strong confidence, believing she knew exactly what she was supposed to do. Now she felt unsure of everything. Chaska listened patiently before responding. He told her that confusion often meant growth, that learning required letting go of certainty sometimes. His words did not remove her doubts, but they made her feel less alone. Spring brought new challenges. A young child from the Lakota community fell seriously ill, creating worry among families. Eleanor offered help, working alongside local healers despite her initial hesitation. She observed how they used traditional practices combined with care and compassion. The experience surprised her. She had expected conflict between their methods and her own beliefs, but instead she saw shared concern for the child's well-being. During those days she worked long hours, barely sleeping. Chaska also stayed close, supporting the family and helping maintain calm among worried relatives. Watching him comfort others with quiet strength affected her deeply. She realized that compassion did not belong to any single culture or belief system. The child eventually recovered, bringing relief to everyone involved. The shared effort created stronger bonds between the mission and the Lakota community. Eleanor felt proud, yet she also felt changed. She began noticing beauty in everyday moments she had once overlooked, the way elders laughed together, the patience shown during teaching, the deep respect people had for nature. Her relationship with Chaska continued to grow naturally. They spoke openly about fears and dreams, discovering similarities they had not expected. He told her about challenges his people faced as traditions changed under outside pressure. She shared stories about her own struggles growing up, including moments when she felt misunderstood. Sometimes their conversations turned playful, filled with gentle teasing about language mistakes or cultural differences. These lighter moments helped Eleanor relax, allowing her to see him not just as someone she wanted to influence, but as a friend she trusted. As weeks passed, she became aware of a growing emotional connection she could no longer ignore. She admired his patience, his kindness, and the way he treated everyone with respect. At the same time, she felt conflicted. Her training had warned against forming attachments that might interfere with her mission. She worried about how others would react if they knew how deeply she valued his presence. One evening while watching the sunset paint the sky with soft colors, she admitted that she felt caught between two paths. She did not want to abandon her faith, yet she no longer felt comfortable trying to change others without fully understanding them. Chaska responded gently, telling her that understanding did not require abandoning who she was. He encouraged her to explore her beliefs more deeply rather than hold on to them out of fear. His acceptance created space for her to question without feeling judged. She began reading her scriptures differently, focusing more on messages of love and humility rather than authority. This shift brought unexpected peace. Meanwhile, tensions within the mission grew stronger. Some missionaries worried that her approach lacked urgency. They wanted faster results, clear evidence of conversion. Eleanor struggled to explain that relationships took time, that trust could not be forced. She felt misunderstood, yet she refused to abandon the compassion she had learned. Her interactions with the Lakota community became more genuine. Instead of approaching people as students or subjects, she treated them as equals. She attended gatherings not as an observer but as a participant, learning through experience rather than instruction. As her bond with Chaska deepened, she realized that her original goal of converting him felt less important. Instead, she valued the conversations themselves, moments where two people from different worlds could share ideas honestly. She felt both excitement and fear, aware that she was changing in ways she could not fully control. One quiet night, she reflected on her journey so far. She remembered the confident young woman who had arrived believing she had all the answers. Now she felt more open, more curious, and perhaps more vulnerable. She wondered whether this change was a failure or a deeper form of success. Looking toward the future, she sensed that difficult choices lay ahead. Expectations from her church, growing emotions toward Chaska, and her evolving understanding of faith created a complicated path. Yet despite uncertainty, she felt alive in a way she had never experienced before. Spring continued to unfold around her, bringing new colors and new possibilities.
Eleanor knew that the journey she had begun was no longer about simply changing others.
It had become a journey of understanding, connection, and transformation, one that would shape not only her mission but her heart as well. As the warm days of summer arrived, Eleanor felt the weight of change more strongly than ever before. The plains were alive with movement. Tall grass swayed under wide skies, and people spent more time outdoors working, gathering, and sharing stories. Life felt fuller, yet inside her mind there was a growing tension she could no longer ignore. Letters began arriving from church leadership far away. The words were polite but firm, asking about progress and results. They wanted clear signs that her work was leading to conversions. Eleanor read the letters carefully, feeling a mix of pressure and uncertainty. She knew they expected success measured in numbers and visible change, yet her experience had become something much deeper and harder to explain. She continued her daily responsibilities at the mission, but her focus felt different. Teaching children remained important to her, and she enjoyed watching them learn new skills. However, she no longer approached lessons with the same sense of authority. Instead of insisting that her way was the only correct path, she encouraged questions and allowed discussions to grow naturally. This change made her teaching feel more honest, though some of her fellow missionaries noticed the difference. Whispers spread quietly among her colleagues. A few expressed concern that she was becoming too sympathetic toward Lakota traditions. One evening during dinner, a missionary suggested that she was forgetting her purpose. The comment hurt more than she expected. She wanted to defend herself, yet she also understood why they felt confused. She herself struggled to define exactly what had changed within her. Meanwhile, her connection with Chaska deepened in ways she had not anticipated. They spent more time working together on community projects, repairing structures, organizing food distribution, and helping families prepare for seasonal changes. During these moments, Eleanor saw how naturally people trusted him. He listened carefully before speaking, allowing others to share their thoughts. His leadership felt gentle but strong. One afternoon, while walking back from a gathering, Eleanor asked him directly why he continued to spend time with her despite knowing her original goal had been to convert him. The question felt heavy, yet she needed to understand. Chaska paused for a moment before answering. He said that he valued honest conversations and believed that understanding came through connection rather than distance. He also admitted that he saw kindness in her that went beyond labels or roles. His words stayed with her long after they parted that day. She realized that she had entered this journey with assumptions about who needed to change. Now she questioned whether change had always been meant for her instead. As weeks passed, Eleanor found herself reflecting more deeply on her own beliefs. She reread familiar passages from her faith, noticing themes of love, humility, and compassion that she had once overlooked. Instead of focusing on difference, she began searching for shared values between her traditions and those of the Lakota people. This approach brought her a sense of peace, though it also created confusion about how others would perceive her. One evening, she was invited to observe a ceremonial gathering within the Lakota community. She hesitated at first, unsure whether her presence would be welcome or appropriate. Chaska assured her that she would be treated with respect if she approached with humility. When she arrived, she watched people move in rhythm with drums and voices rising into the evening air. The atmosphere felt deeply meaningful, filled with reverence and unity. Instead of feeling conflict, she experienced a quiet sense of connection. The ceremony reminded her of moments in church when people sang together, sharing emotion through sound and movement. She realized that spirituality could appear different, yet still carry similar intentions. This understanding surprised her, challenging ideas she had once considered unchangeable. Later that night, she spoke with Chaska about the experience. She admitted that she felt moved in ways she had not expected. He listened without judgment, explaining that spirituality often spoke to the heart rather than the mind. He told her that different paths could still lead toward understanding and kindness. His words did not ask her to abandon her beliefs. Instead, they encouraged her to explore them more deeply. As summer continued, Eleanor became more aware of her growing emotional attachment to him. She admired his patience, his steady presence, and the way he encouraged her without trying to control her decisions. At times, their conversations felt charged with unspoken emotion. Simple moments, shared laughter, quiet walks, long conversations under the open sky carried meaning that neither fully expressed. At the same time, pressure from the mission increased. A visiting leader arrived to evaluate progress, asking direct questions about her work. During their meeting, she struggled to describe her journey honestly, without sounding as though she had lost focus. The leader emphasized the importance of clear outcomes, reminding her that she represented a larger mission. After the meeting, Eleanor felt deeply unsettled. She walked alone for hours, thinking about expectations and reality. She wondered whether she had failed or whether success looked different than she had once imagined. When she finally spoke to Chaska about her concerns, he encouraged her to listen to her own heart rather than only external voices. He said that true purpose came from honesty, not fear. These conversations strengthened her confidence, yet they also made her aware that difficult decisions might lie ahead. She began to recognize that her path might not align perfectly with the expectations of those who had sent her. Another turning point came during a community gathering where disagreements arose between different groups about shared resources. Eleanor watched as tensions grew, expecting conflict to follow. Instead, Chaska stepped forward and guided the conversation calmly. He listened to each perspective carefully, helping people find common ground. The situation resolved peacefully, leaving Eleanor deeply impressed by his ability to create understanding without force. Watching him that day, she realized that leadership based on respect could achieve more than authority alone. The experience strengthened her admiration and deepened the emotional connection she felt toward him. As the summer days slowly moved toward autumn, Eleanor recognized that she was no longer trying to change him. Instead, she felt grateful for what she had learned through their friendship. The realization both relieved and frightened her. It meant accepting that her role had shifted, that she was no longer the confident teacher she once believed herself to be. One evening, while sitting together near the edge of the plains, she admitted that she felt different, as though she had stepped onto a path she never planned to walk. Chaska smiled gently and told her that growth often felt like uncertainty at first. He said that true understanding came not from holding tightly to old ideas, but from allowing them to evolve. Eleanor felt a deep sense of calm in that moment. Though she knew challenges still lay ahead, she also sensed that her journey was moving toward something meaningful. She had come to teach, believing she held all the answers. Now she found herself learning more than she had ever expected, discovering that love and respect could transform not only relationships but the very way a person understood the world. The season slowly began to change again, and with it came a feeling of tension that Eleanor could sense even before anyone spoke about it openly. Autumn approached quietly, bringing cooler winds and long golden evenings across the plains. The land looked peaceful, but beneath that calm surface new challenges were beginning to grow. A group of new missionaries arrived at the settlement, sent by church leadership to strengthen the mission's efforts. They came with strong confidence and clear expectations. Unlike Eleanor, they had not spent months building relationships with the Lakota community. Their approach was direct and structured, focused on quick results and clear outcomes. At first, Eleanor welcomed them warmly, hoping their presence would help share responsibilities. However, she soon noticed differences in their attitude. They spoke about the Lakota people as if they were problems waiting to be solved, rather than individuals with complex traditions. During meetings, they discussed plans for stricter teaching schedules and more aggressive outreach efforts. Eleanor listened quietly, feeling uncomfortable but unsure how to respond. She remembered how she once thought in similar ways, and that realization made her hesitate before criticizing them. As the new missionaries began their work, tension slowly appeared. Some Lakota families felt pressured by the sudden increase in structured lessons and unfamiliar expectations. Conversations that once felt respectful began to carry a tone of misunderstanding. Eleanor tried to act as a bridge, encouraging patience on both sides, but she sensed that harmony was becoming fragile. One afternoon, after observing a discussion that ended in frustration, she walked alone to clear her thoughts. She felt torn between loyalty to her fellow missionaries and her growing understanding of the Lakota community. She believed in her faith deeply, yet she no longer believed that change should be forced or rushed. This conflict created a heavy feeling in her chest that she struggled to explain even to herself. When she met Chaska later that day, he noticed her quiet mood immediately. He asked gently what troubled her. She shared her concerns honestly, explaining how she feared that the growing pressure might damage the trust built over months. He listened carefully, nodding slowly. He said that change often created tension when people did not take time to listen. His words felt simple, yet deeply meaningful. Soon after, a meeting was organized between missionaries and Lakota leaders to address growing misunderstandings. Eleanor attended with mixed emotions, unsure whether the discussion would bring resolution or further division. The conversation began politely but quickly became difficult. Some missionaries insisted that certain traditions should be replaced entirely, believing this would lead to progress. Lakota elders responded calmly but firmly, expressing the importance of preserving their identity. Eleanor watched as the conversation moved back and forth without real understanding. She felt a sudden urge to speak. Taking a deep breath, she shared her experiences from the past months, explaining how trust had grown through listening rather than pressure. She spoke about shared values such as kindness, family, and respect. Her words surprised both sides, and for a moment the room fell silent. Though the discussion did not solve every problem, her voice helped slow the tension. People began speaking more carefully, and the atmosphere softened slightly. Afterward, some missionaries questioned her loyalty, suggesting that she had defended Lakota traditions too strongly. Their comments hurt, but she remained calm, knowing that her intentions came from honesty. Meanwhile, her relationship with Chaska continued to deepen quietly. They spent evenings talking about personal hopes and fears, sharing stories that revealed parts of themselves they rarely showed others. Eleanor realized that she trusted him completely, and that realization both comforted and frightened her. She knew that feelings between them were growing stronger, though neither spoke openly about love yet. One evening, while walking through the open fields, she stopped suddenly and admitted that she felt different from the person who had first arrived. She confessed that she no longer saw the world in simple categories of right and wrong. Instead, she saw layers of meaning shaped by experience and understanding. Chaska listened without interruption, then told her that growth often felt like losing certainty before finding deeper truth. His words helped her accept the changes within herself rather than resist them. She realized that her faith had not disappeared. It had simply become more compassionate and open. This realization brought her a sense of peace she had not felt before. However, external pressure continued to build. Church leadership sent another message questioning her methods. They suggested that if she could not show clear results soon, her position might be reconsidered. Reading the letter made her hands tremble slightly. She had always valued approval from those who guided her journey, and now she felt as though she stood at a crossroads. During the following days, she struggled with doubt. Had she failed in her mission? Or had she discovered a deeper purpose that others could not yet see? She spent long hours in quiet reflection, seeking clarity through prayer and contemplation. At the same time, a new challenge arose within the community. A disagreement between local settlers and Lakota families over shared land threatened to escalate into serious conflict. Fear spread quickly, and misunderstandings grew stronger with each passing day. Eleanor watched anxiously, worried that months of careful relationship building might be undone by one moment of anger. Chaska stepped forward as a mediator, inviting leaders from both sides to talk openly. He asked Eleanor to help facilitate communication, believing her presence could encourage trust. Though nervous, she agreed. The meeting was tense at first, with voices raised and emotions strong. Eleanor focused on helping each person feel heard, translating not only language but also intention. Slowly, the atmosphere shifted. People began recognizing shared concerns and common goals. By the end of the meeting, a peaceful agreement was reached. Relief spread through the community, and Eleanor felt a deep sense of gratitude. She realized that collaboration and empathy had achieved something that force never could. After the crisis passed, she and Chaska walked together under the evening sky. The air felt calm, carrying the scent of autumn. They spoke quietly about how much had changed since their first meeting. Eleanor admitted that she no longer wanted to stand above anyone as a teacher. Instead, she wanted to stand beside others as a friend. Chaska smiled gently, telling her that true strength came from humility. His words touched her deeply, and in that moment she felt certain that love had grown between them. Not sudden or dramatic, but steady and real. As autumn leaves began to fall, Eleanor sensed that a final decision was approaching. She knew that the path ahead would require courage and honesty. Though uncertainty remained, she felt stronger than before, guided not by rigid expectations but by compassion and understanding. The journey that had begun as a mission to change others had transformed into a journey toward deeper connection, preparing her for the choices that would soon shape her future. The air felt cooler as autumn slowly settled across the plains. Leaves changed color and fell gently with the wind, covering the ground in warm shades of gold and brown. Eleanor often walked alone during these quiet evenings, thinking deeply about everything that had happened since she first arrived. The journey that began with strong certainty had turned into something much more complex, and now she felt that an important decision stood before her. The letter from church leadership rested folded in her pocket. She had read it many times, each reading bringing new thoughts and emotions. The message was clear and respectful, but firm. She was asked to return home for reassignment unless she could fully recommit to traditional missionary work and focus on measurable results. The choice felt heavy. For years, she had followed guidance from those leaders without question. Now she felt unsure whether she could return to the same mindset. The mission settlement felt different than before. Some missionaries treated her with kindness but also distance, unsure how to understand her changing perspective. Others spoke openly about their disappointment, believing she had lost focus. Eleanor tried not to let these reactions hurt her, yet she could not deny the sadness she felt. She never intended to cause division. She had only followed what felt honest in her heart. Meanwhile, the Lakota community continued its daily rhythms. People prepared for colder months, gathering supplies and strengthening homes. Eleanor spent more time helping families with practical tasks rather than formal lessons. She found joy in simple moments, sharing meals, listening to stories from elders, and watching children play freely without worry. Her connection with Chaska remained steady and comforting. They spoke often, though both sensed that something important was approaching. One evening, while sitting near a small fire under the open sky, Eleanor finally shared the contents of the letter with him. She explained the choice she had been given and admitted that she felt torn between loyalty to her past and the life she had built here. Chaska listened quietly, giving her space to speak without interruption. When she finished, he asked what she truly wanted, not what others expected, but what felt right within her heart. The question lingered in the air. Eleanor realized that she had spent so much time trying to meet expectations that she had rarely asked herself that simple question. In the days that followed, she spent long hours reflecting. She walked across the plains, watching how the land changed with the season. She remembered the young woman who had arrived with certainty, believing she carried answers for others. She also remembered the many moments that had changed her. Conversations filled with curiosity, shared struggles during winter, and the slow growth of trust between different communities. She began to understand that her faith had not disappeared. It had simply transformed. Instead of focusing on changing others, she felt called to serve through compassion and mutual respect. This realization brought a calm clarity she had been searching for. During this time, she also faced her feelings for Chaska more honestly. Their relationship had grown gradually, built on shared experiences rather than sudden emotion. She admired his patience, his respect for others, and the way he encouraged her to grow without pressure. One evening as they walked together near the edge of the plains, she spoke openly about how much he had influenced her journey. She admitted that she no longer saw him as someone to change, but as someone who had helped her see the world more clearly. Chaska responded gently, saying that she had also changed him by showing him a different perspective on faith and understanding. He explained that their connection had taught him that people from different backgrounds could learn from each other without losing themselves. As days passed, Eleanor felt her decision becoming clearer. She knew that returning home would mean leaving behind the relationships and understanding she had built. It would also mean returning to a role that no longer felt fully honest to her. At the same time, staying required courage because it meant stepping away from expectations she had followed for most of her life. The final meeting with church representatives arrived sooner than she expected. They listened carefully as she spoke about her experiences, explaining how her understanding of mission work had evolved. She spoke about building trust, respecting culture, and focusing on shared values rather than forcing change. Though they appreciated her sincerity, they remained concerned that her approach did not align with traditional goals. When they asked for her final decision, Eleanor paused briefly before answering. She said that she wished to remain among the Lakota people, not as someone trying to change them, but as someone committed to living alongside them with respect and kindness. Speaking those words felt both frightening and freeing. She knew that her choice might close certain doors, yet she also felt a deep sense of peace. After the meeting ended, she walked slowly outside, feeling the cool autumn air against her face. For a moment she felt uncertain about what the future might hold. Then she saw Chaska waiting nearby, his calm presence bringing comfort. Without many words, they walked together, sharing a quiet understanding that their journey was entering a new chapter. Life continued to move forward naturally. Eleanor became known as someone who helped create understanding between different groups. She assisted with translation, education, and community projects, using her skills in ways that supported rather than controlled. People from both communities began to trust her as a bridge between worlds. Her relationship with Chaska grew deeper over time. They supported each other through daily challenges, celebrating small victories and learning from setbacks. Their love developed slowly, grounded in respect and shared values rather than grand gestures. Eleanor realized that love had changed her more gently than any argument ever could. As another winter approached, she reflected on how far she had come. She no longer measured success through numbers or visible achievements. Instead, she saw success in quiet moments of understanding. A shared smile between strangers, a peaceful conversation after disagreement, or a child learning without fear. One evening, standing under a sky filled with stars, she felt grateful for the path that had brought her here. She had come with the intention of guiding others toward her truth. Instead, she discovered a deeper truth about herself. that love and humility could transform not only relationships, but the way a person understood faith and purpose. Her journey had not erased differences between cultures or beliefs. Instead, it had shown her that true connection came from embracing those differences with respect. The choice she made required courage, but it also brought peace she had never experienced before. As the seasons continued to change, Eleanor knew that her story would not be remembered as one person converting another. It would be remembered as a journey of mutual transformation, where two people met with open hearts and discovered that love, understanding, and patience could build a bridge stronger than any expectation.